Hello there, I am Man in Yellow and welcome to the second part of the guide series in which we will be looking at team zoning and setting up threats as a follow-up to the previous one where we just looked at the basics of zones. We will be going through a couple of games from high-ranking players while I explain. The first one here is one of Shadow Force's games that I picked out. She's a great player, one of the high-ranking ones, so she makes sense to pick as one of the first ones. First of all, we will skip a couple turns ahead here because it obviously does not make sense to talk about team zoning if there is no team yet. You can actually already see this cowbell with the unicorn is zoning for this point down here, because if they went down here with anything it would die. But that's not really team zoning, that's a one unit zoning, right? So here we see a jar cannon come out. This is so that if the cowbell goes down here to take a point, it will die because the jar cannon will be able to double hit it and the sargassum could hit it once and then go back. That is already zoning with multiple units there. They did of course take both of these points because they weren't actually zoned from taking this point, since the Shadow Force went for a unicorn, which is a relatively slow unit, so it's obviously not going to reach all the way up here this early. Now we just see them invade here very quickly to hit this and kind of force Stelios a little bit back. I don't think I would have made this play, I would have pulled this back, but whatever. That's not what we're here to talk about. So here you can already see they actually needed to move back because of what Stelios did here. He placed actually I don't know whether Stelios is a he or she, but they placed their jar cannon here so that it could hit the unicorn if it doesn't move away. And therefore they have to move back, because otherwise they're just taking 3 hits on this, and taking 3 hits on that is not good for her. So she just hits it once and then she pulls back while also destroying the middle point so that they have easy access to it. We can see that Stelios has brought 2 lobbers here, which obviously get to zone over obstacles, which is pretty good. So if the Shadow Force decided to put anything here, it would just die. At least if it's not super high health. So here we already see a very interesting one, because Attractor has a very large zone, but more importantly than just having a large zone, it can manipulate other Phobies zones. So there is a good bunch of Phobies in the game that can manipulate which zone you have, which are essentially all of the ones that cause movement of some form. Push Phobies, pull Phobies, ones that move your own Phobies. Those are all capable of manipulating how zones work in the game. Attractor in particular is very, very good because you can move forward and pull something into your other Phobies zone. So say they had some Phobies sitting out here and there were no obstacles, right? Attractor could move forward and pull them in, and then the other Phobies would be able to double hit them because they would enter that double hit zone maybe. And therefore you would be able to kill enemies while staying at actual range with this. That is why Attractor is so good. And we can actually already see zoning coming in very, very much here, because the Attractor zones for a huge area on its own. We can already see that if Stelios places any of his units in this area here, they will be targeted by the Attractor, either getting poked or even getting pulled in and killed by other Phobies because they would enter their zones. So even if the Unicorn's double hit zone is only here, it could still hit once here, right? So, if they get pulled from here, say he moved the spot over here, it would get pulled in here and then maybe it could get double hit. Obviously that doesn't work out with how they could move, but just as an example, right? It's probably a better example to say that they pulled something from up here, but whatever. My point is just that pulls can kind of change how the zones work, in that you can move an opposing unit into your zone. Pulls, on the other hand, will move enemies that you are in the zone of away. Did I say pulls? Pushes. So if I had a Hevo or a Repeller sitting up here and I pushed away, I moved forward here and I pushed one of these away, they wouldn't be able to enter my zone and hit me because I would be too far away. Which is also why sometimes a pull phobia or a push phobia can be very, very, very strong. It just depends on the situation and map and stuff like that, of course. Here we see Shadow Force bank again. Stelios is also banking for something big apparently. this doesn't really matter, we're just moving ahead here a little bit. They're taking some points and stuff, because that makes sense to do. So we can see that Stelios brought Oopsie Baby, which also has a very large double hit zone, because it is a 3 attack or 3 range attack thing. So it can hit all the way in this area twice, and all of these tiles it can hit once, which is essentially the same as a tractor, except that a tractor can pull phobies in, whereas this can debuff. And it's a lot more health, of course. Just gonna move forward here, so we can see here Shadow Force also brings a Miss Muffet. Miss Muffet is like the most common phobie manipulator, or whatever you want to call it, like soul manipulator in the game, because everyone gets it. So what they could do right here is they could go down here and they could pull either of these phobies in with the Miss Muffet, right? And that would put it in range of being hit by both this and both of these. He could even do she could even do a double pull here by like pulling the spot in or the gravedigger in here, and then pulling them with like both the spot and the gravedigger with the attractor afterwards, and they would move very far in. Of course, that doesn't actually work because this is in the way, but maybe they move in here and pull with this first, and then they pull one of them forward with this, and they will be in double attack range. So having 2 pullers can also be very powerful, although most of the time you only see one of them. You can also see that Shadow Force brought some very slow units here, which is why they're bringing these pulls. This is a pretty common thing you see, where you bring a bunch of pullers alongside some very slow units. So the slow range units actually have like large double hit zones, but not that large single hit zones. So what you're doing is you're just pulling them into the double hit zones, and then you're of course dealing a ton of damage to them, because these are very good stats compared to their cost, since they are immobile. So you're compensating for their weakness by using pullers. Shadow Force just slowly moves forward here, and you can see that if we just go a turn back here, their previous zone was of course like the attractor could move forward and then pull all the way to here. So the previous zone was right here, right? It wasn't actually threatening any of Stelios' units, which is why they're moving forward to setting up here, because then the zone will threaten all units that are in here instead, which is a very big difference, of course, because then they have no space to put their units on. They will always be pulled if they don't go in or do something. So you can see how the entire team's zones move here, because Attractor and Miss Muffet are moving. Of course, Miss Muffet ends up a little bit further back than before, simply because you want the AoE unit further forward so it can maybe get double hits or somehow. Of course, it ends up getting debuffed here, but that's kind of what happens if that one is further forward. So now, Stelios has completely entered Shadow Force's zone. Shadow Force can actually double hit with this if they want to. They don't even need to move it. They can pull and then move back if they want to. But you can see very clearly that he can pull on this unit, for example, and pull these phobies in to deal a ton of damage to them. And that is likely what's going to happen here, I'm guessing. Maybe she pulls with the Miss Muffet first. That's fine. That's likely done because they don't want to pull the glob in too far. And there you could see a pull kind of pulling everything into double hit range, like the, what's it called? The Unicorn and the Erratic's actual double hit range right now is right here for the Erratic, and right here, like right here for the Unicorn, right? Or something like that. So by pulling a phobie into their range, you can double hit them instead of only getting a single attack. Wouldn't even be a single attack from both, because you would have to move forward. And that is why pulls can be so powerful in this game. It's because you get to manipulate the enemy phobies and put them in your double hit zone, or sometimes in the single hit zones if you just want to snipe a unit. And that of course means that the Oopsie Baby dies here. Shadow Force also chooses to block here just to deny the glob space in its kind of zone, because otherwise the glob could have had a zone that looked something like this, right? With this block here, their zone instead looks something like this, which of course means that the only phobie they can go over and kill is the Miss Muffet, in which case they will be hit by all of Shadow Force's units, and it will likely just end up dying. Because there's also a trap here, of course. So here, I guess Stelios tried to go for some sort of like capture panic points, but at this point they're just dead, right? Like, they don't have a chance, they're gonna surrender. And that is kind of how like some team combat can work. Here we saw that they brought a puller, because pullers are very, very powerful in this game. The kind of team combat can also work by simply having like ranged phobies and maybe a single melee. You don't want too many melees because of what I explained before. Their zones are worse. They don't have as large double hit zones, and sometimes they lack space, because the maps can like be ones where you would lack space. They are also just vulnerable to getting double or free hit and stuff like that because of, you know, not being able to retaliate very easily. You can also see if I go into a game like this, if I kill this Razormouth real quick here, and I take this point, just a second, I will do it this way, I think. If I do this, he can very easily kill these two units, so I will have traded a 1 key for 2 1 keys, which won't be very nice for me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to bring a boom in, which is what I think is one of the best zoning units in the game, assuming it doesn't die to some random AoE from the opponent, of course. So we are going to put a boom here, and then I'm probably just bringing like a Ginsting. I think Ginsting is fine here because we can Ginsting off the stim pad, which is very, very strong. So we have a double hit zone with the Ginsting sitting right here right now, but that doesn't really matter because the single hit zone is buffed up by a stim pad, which makes it way more powerful. And the single hit zone looks like this right now, which is very, very large. Actually, it looks even larger than that, but if you want to stay on the stim pad, it looks like that, right? And that means that if Blue Face Baby, which is a weird name, chooses to like kill these phobies, they will be pulled forward most likely and have some of their units blown up by this boom. If they want to kill the boom, they have to put a jar cannon here, hit this with their bow mangles, and then be moved in to kill the boom. But then the Razormouth will not die, and I will be hitting it twice because the double hit zone of the Razormouth is right here right now. And I will also be able to hit it with the Cassowary once and with the Ginsting once after putting it on the stim pad likely. So this kind of creates a kind of weird situation for the opponent where they can't kill enough units to kind of stay out of a dangerous zone. So either they're going to be in the zone of the boom, which is only capable of attacking once, obviously, because it sacrifices itself. So it only really has a 1-hit zone, but it deals a lot of damage for that 1 hit. So either they will end up in the 1-hit zone of the boom, or they will end up in the double hit zone of this Razormouth, because they can't really support their unit properly because of this wall sitting here. Like, they can't go Ginsting here and AoE onto this and kill both of these and stay safe. That's not possible for them. So this is kind of using the terrain as a advantage here, together with like using the stim pad and zoning with the boom, making it very hard for them to play the game. I just wanted to give a short example from one of my own games here. Now we will go into, I think, one of Alien Engineer's games where they play against Studio Boctron, which I don't know if that's the correct way of saying their name, but whatever. Just quickly go here to the leaderboards instead of searching for them, that's probably faster. Yeah, Alien Engineer is very high ranked, so they're easy to find in here. I believe it was down here somewhere. Yeah, there. I think it's this game that I wanted to go in. We have another game on the center stage here. I'm just using the same map because that makes it easier instead of moving around with multiple maps. So Alien Engineer just summoned some 1 keys that will try to take points for free here. They're both very, very high health 1 keys that can still hit back. So they're pretty strong in this case. They placed the cowbell down here, because then if the Gravedigger goes here, you can get a free hit on it. Maybe even 2 if you want to stay there and be very aggressive with the cowbell. So the cowbell has a 2-hit zone right here, and that makes it hard for the Gravedigger to take this point for free. On here we are just taking the panic point for free with the tickles because it's not threatened, like the Contortio's 2-hit zone is right here, so it would have to move up and then attack once, and that wouldn't really result in a good trade anyway, so this is fine from Alien Engineer. And we can see that Dudio, I'm just gonna call them Dudio instead of their full name, bring a Spot out here. Spot is very good here because it has a very large zone due to being a lobber, so it can actually hit all of this area where it's standing right now with 2 hits, and then it has a 1-hit zone, which is like, it can definitely hit up here. It probably looks something like this. I believe this is its 1-hit zone. Yeah, this is the 1-hit zone from it. It looks a little bit weird because of the obstacles, right? But the point is just that they can double hit down here, and they could also hit up here if they really need to, like they can move up here and poke. So this forces Alien Engineer to either pull back or play aggressively due to the Spot being in here. And the lob is kind of compensating for the fact that these obstacles haven't been destroyed yet. They did also bring the Gravedigger down here and just like take the hit from the cowbell. And we can actually see here, this is a pretty important thing to look out for, because you can summon units from your vault, which also means there is kind of a permanent zone around your vault in some weird way, where going like within 2 tiles of it is extremely dangerous, 3 tiles is kind of dangerous, and if you go further out than that, 4 tiles, that's a little bit dangerous, and 5 tiles out here, there you can only get hit by a snowball, a jar cannon, and Hevo Plate. Obviously they do not have enough keys for Hevo Plate here because this is a small map and no one is banking that much, but they can get hit by Snowball, which means that this Contortio is actually in danger here, since a obstacle can be destroyed and then Snowball can be summoned, which is what we also see happen here. That's kind of like a hidden zone, I guess you can call it, from the vault. It's not really something that I actually wanted to talk about, but it's here anyway, so I might as well just say it. They get the free hit here and move away, which makes perfect sense. Of course, the Spot is standing right here, which means that this Tickle's moved into its zone, but it's fine because the Tickles can actually survive the hits from the Spot, since it's a very, very tanky wonky. So it doesn't really matter that it's this far forward. We see Duo pull back a little bit here, which I don't know what they actually needed to do, because Alien only has 3 melee units right here, which means that they can at most move forward with 1 of them and hit once here, and then they would be getting hit twice, most likely, if not even more, depending on what Duo brings in here. But it's also fine to pull out just to be safe, right? It's not something that actually hurts them or anything. I would probably have to hit double there, but it doesn't matter that much. They bring Cassowary, which is very nice because it can, of course, have a much larger double hit zone than most units of its tier. Cassowary and Creep both have very large double hit zones, and there is also like a pretty large 1-hit zone for them because they have 2 movement and 2 range effectively due to their abilities. So right now Dudio could actually attack something all the way back here by going over with the, or even like up here of course, by going over with the Cassowary and jumping on it, and then also attacking with the Spot, which means they have a very large area coverage right here. Of course, they also do need to like have actual power out, because right now they have way more health on Alien Engineer's side. We see a Knuckles come out here, which again, it covers a huge amount of space. Just it moving out here right now on the turn it's summoned, it covers all of these tiles with double hits, and all of the tiles out here with like all of, I believe it's something like this. Actually, it's also capable of hitting here. It covers these tiles with single hits and these other ones with double hits, so it makes it nearly impossible to move into with how the game looks right now. That is also why Knuckles is very popular on this map. We also see Alien Engineer just move in with everything here. That is just to take points, and because they can't really lose all of their things, they kind of can if Dudio brings a jar cannon, but then they are investing in a very weak phobie, like stat-wise, And right now their board kind of needs something a bit more stat heavy to deal with this Innoculus and the advantage that Engineer has in panic points. So at most they can like double hit this with the Cassowary, double hit this with the Spot, and then bring a Jar Cannon in to shoot it maybe with a 1 key. And I think Alien Engineer would be pretty happy to see that, because they're not even reclaiming any of the points, and then they can set their Innoculus up in a way where it becomes very hard for Dudio to actually like retake points without just straight up losing their phobies, because they won't be able to really go in. They can also just bring this. I think there was probably a way where they just killed everything without bringing Jar, but that's whatever, right? Then they had to bring the Gravedigger in, which dies, so it's not really better than bringing Jar if you're just looking at it that way. Of course, they do need something that can actually threaten the Innoculus, which is why they brought the Electrical in here, where we just see Alien Engineer make a very aggressive play as a response to this, because right now they will have more power on the board due to this Innoculus being nearly unkillable and having an extremely large double hit zone. So they can kind of play for like a setup where they have a very large amount of attacks within a given zone, which makes it hard for Dudio to actually respond to that. We can see that happening here. After they move in to kill the Gravedigger for free, pretty much. Not really for free, because they spend a 1 key, and they're also putting this Gravedigger very far forward. But they're moving very aggressively in here with their units, which is what I'm trying to say. And they're like killing things in a way that is kind of annoying for Dudio. Because right now you can see Dudio can probably kill this by hitting it with both of these a bunch of times. But then you could even move forward and hit them for free. And these units are also just in a way where like Dudio has to take panic points at some point here, because they have 3 points just hitting their heart for 700 damage a turn. But the Innoculus covers a very large area. Creep also hits down here, so if they try to take this point they will get poisoned, which will cost them a key because they will have to heal their unit, unless they use the Cassowary, in which case it won't be healable and it will be even worse, right? So right now it is nearly impossible for Dudio to retake any of these points without losing their phobies, just because of the large space that Alien has covered. We will of course see the Gravedigger die here, I think. Yeah, it did. And it also had a point retaken. We see another unit here, which is very interesting when it comes to zones, because this is capable of like manipulating your own unit's zones, which is incredibly powerful. You can push an allied phobie, and its zone will be moved like 1 tile forward in whichever like path you push it, depending on where you're pushing it, of course. So if I had let's just say Spot was sitting here. We can even just say the Spot is here, right? Currently the Spot zone for double hitting is something like this, right? If he pushes it up here, it can also double hit here and here and here. So it becomes something like this instead. Which means that you're gaining additional tiles that you can double hit with the phobie. So this is very powerful because of that, because moving your zones is very powerful, or moving something into your zones can also be very powerful, just because double hitting is kind of the best thing you can do, because you are actually killing enemies most of the time when you do that. That is also why this phobia is so incredibly powerful. See the Cassowary just get obliterated as quickly as possible here, and Alien Engineer instantly retakes this point with his Razor Mouth just to put even more pressure on Dudio. Dudio probably had to bring multiple 1 keys instead of this shovel, just because they really have to retake some points. Maybe they should even have brought 3 like health heavy 1 keys or something like that and tried to reclaim them. That would probably also have been very bad for them, because they would have lost multiple of them. But there's not really a good play for them here anymore, because they've fallen so far behind on panic points, and they're walking into a phobia with such a large zone coverage. Here they take with the, what's it called, Temptress down here, and that is of course because there's not really any way that this looks like it's gonna take a lot of damage, but it can actually die here because of the shovel moving a zone. You will see here, I don't know if they do this, but they can. They can take the shovel up here, and they can move the Innoculus down here. They can double hit. Then they can move down with the Snowball, which I believe still has its ability right now. They can use the shish kebab. I think it's called shish kebab. I'm just gonna call it fire. They can use the fireball on the Temptress, and then they can hit the Temptress once with the creep, and it will die. Of course, that will probably result in a dead creep, but that's trading a 2 key and panic points for a 4 key. That's a trade you will take pretty much every day of the week. So that would be very good as a play. I don't know if they actually do that here. It looks like they are doing that. That seems like the great play here. So they kill that thing. They actually keep this behind here. How did they do that? Did they just have so much damage? Guess maybe they did. Looks like they had so much damage that they didn't even need to use the creep. They are very, very high levels here. So it makes a bit of sense that maybe the Temptress wasn't that high level. Oh, that was actually a high level. They just died to that apparently because Temptress is a terrible phobie. But even if the Temptress had been like a Ginsting and been a bit more tanky, they could have moved in with the creep to also kill it. And that is because they are covering such a large zone. So you kind of have to look at the Inoculus here and look at which zones it can hit with the shovel double. So instead of the zone being like this, which is what it looks like without the shovel, the double hit zone actually ends up being like this, which is obviously a lot more scary. And then you take in the Snowball, which also has a huge zone. Like Snowball has the largest coverage zone together with Evo Plate and Jar Cannon in the game. They can cover 5 tiles forward instead of just 3 or 4 like many other units do. So they will be able to hit with Inoculus and Snowball pretty much anywhere that Dudio goes. And then down here we also have a creep. So we actually end up looking at a double hit from this and a hit from Snowball and a hit from creep if they go down here, which is obviously what could have happened, but they didn't actually need to even use the creep. Then we see Dudio go in here because they are trying to not die. Of course, this ends up with their phobies being so far forward that it's again very easy for Alien to just kill their things because they have a lot of zone coverage, like I've said multiple times here. They can also bring the Jar Cannon out here to deal a bit of extra damage, and this allows them to even kill the Murder Wing with their Inoculus. So we actually saw multiple times here where a unit was summoned from the vault and was capable of hitting an enemy, both of them being Jar Cannon and Snowball, which have like very large coverage zones even on the turn where they're summoned. So they become extremely scary. And this ends up losing Dudio the game here, I'm pretty sure, because they are so far behind in like keys here that they're not going to be able to come back, even if they're pushing in and maybe killing this for free. The Snake is probably going to die here because it's in range of everything else. Like there's a double hit zone for the Jar Cannon and Inoculus right here, and they can also move in with either creep or the shovel to deal that extra hit if they even need to do that. So at this point, Dudio is just completely game over. There's not really any chance of them winning. If it came down to stats here, Alien could have also brought 2 stat heavy phobies, but slow phobies with like low zones. But they don't even need to do that because they are far enough ahead. They actually bring the drone in here to just try and end the game faster apparently. But that's just to really kill everything fast. And I think that was a pretty good display of how powerful a very large zone with double hit can be with the Inoculus. The Inoculus pretty much just took over the entire game here because of the 3-hit zone. Like it can hit everything without anything really being able to approach it because there's just body blocking in the way to for you to get to the Inoculus. There's too many other phobies just sitting in front of it, and if you move forward, not only are you getting hit by the Inoculus, you're also going to be hit by the other phobies that Alien Engineer has. And it was also a pretty good display of how they set up a lot of threats there. You can see they covered such a large area with multiple phobies that pretty much no matter where Dudio went, his phobie would have died. And that is really what you want to do if you can. Whereas in the previous game they used pullers, here they just covered a very large area. Those are 2 very different approaches, but both of them are very, very good. Pulling means that you can kind of isolate an enemy phobie, pull it in and kill it, often for free, because if the opponent tries to fight you, they are a phobie down and you have defender's advantage, whereas in this way they are just unable to move forward because of the zone that you are covering. I think that was fine as a coverage of zones and kind of how to set up kills. And I don't think I will do another one. I had another game that I might have done, but I think this is already more than enough, and it's also getting close to half an hour in the episode, which I don't want it to be more than that. I think that would be too long for short episodes. So I will be seeing you guys in the next video, and I hope you found some of this helpful. Bye.